Ugh, ads are such poop. Subscribe to Acast Plus now to skip ads and more for just $1 a month. Click the link in our show notes to learn how. And hey, we're on Patreon too. Your support helps cover the cost of running a podcast. For $2 a month, you can get early access to all our episodes ad-free, plus bonus episodes exclusive to Patreon subscribers only. Visit patreon.com/sacrilegious discourse to sign up now.
Acast powers the world's best podcasts. Here's a show that we recommend.
Hey, I'm Tom Merritt.
And I'm Sarah Lane, and we love talking about tech.
Now, you might wonder why. Isn't tech news all antitrust cases and stealing data these days?
No, I mean, we do help you understand all of that without the hype you might get from a lot of other sources, but there's so much more. Like Taiwan rolling out a digital currency.
Autonomous shipping being threatened by cyber pirates.
And NFTs being for more than just fleecing people out of their money, like concert tickets or booking vacations. Did you know about these? Well, you would know them well if you listen to Daily Tech News Show.
You'll be the most well-informed person on tech in the room.
So wherever you listen to your podcasts, follow Daily Tech News Show.
Acast helps creators launch, grow, and monetize their podcasts everywhere. Acast.com.
Welcome to Sacrilegious Discourse.
I'm husband.
And I'm wife.
Together, we're reading the Bible for the very first time.
We grew up without religion and wanted to know what all the fuss was about.
Well, what have we learned so far?
That God is a dick, and apparently some people believe in talking donkeys?
We're not trying to pass ourselves off as experts.
Nope, we're just reading the Bible for the first time and giving our first take reaction.
If you'd like to join us in this venture, you might consider starting at episode 1.
Otherwise, jump in wherever you like.
All right, let's go read the Bible.
Yeah, let's get to it. Husband!
Wife!
Do you know what today is?
It's Saturday.
It sure is. It's Q&A Saturday.
And what are we covering today?
We are going to cue some high places and Sennacherib.
High places in Sennacherib.
2 separate topics.
I figured since it was 2 separate things.
Well, I just didn't want you to think it was high places and Sennacherib together. Like Sennacherib on high places.
Got it. High places, comma, and Sennacherib.
Yeah.
Got it.
Yeah.
Okay. So this is Q&A for chapters 31 through
34.
4. That's right. We skipped an episode this
of
month.
Second Chronicles.
Yeah.
Yeah. My
bad.
Yep.
I was thinking too hard there.
You really were.
Sorry.
It was painful to watch.
It was... All right. Well, let's go ahead and get into this, huh?
Okie dokie.
All right.
Okay, with regard to high places, I feel like we've covered this before.
Have we?
But when I was looking up what are high places again now, so that we could look more into it, I don't think that we did a Q&A about it. Either that or if we did, it was a very shoddy one.
I mean, is there more to it than they're just on the top of mountains?
Yeah. Okay. They are places of worship on elevated pieces of ground to bring worshipers closer to their false gods. We've talked about that.
Right.
And they were originally dedicated to idol worship, especially among the Moabites. So we've talked about that.
Right.
And the shrines often included a stone altar, graven images as preserved on steles.
What exactly is a graven image?
An image that is graven. I think it's engraved, maybe, like a graven image that is a image that you engraved onto something. I don't know.
Got it.
A sacred object.
It's a carved idol or representation of a god used as an object of worship.
Yeah, so I was kind of right. So engraved into the stone.
It was bothering me. I had to know. So
yeah.
All right.
So I was kind of right.
Right.
Engraved onto stone.
Sure.
Okay. Yeah. So it's basically a fucking cave dwelling drawing.
Right.
But carved instead of with crayons or whatever.
Right.
Yeah. Okay. It also often included a sacred object, such as a stone pillar or wooden pole, like an Asherah pole,
Okay.
in various shapes identified with the object of worship, which would have been animals, constellations, goddesses, fertility deities, that kind of thing.
Sure.
Okay.
Yep.
It also would have held a cistern for water,
Okay.
like a bowl of some sort.
Right.
But maybe the bowl wasn't like just a bowl; it was like actually
Probably to cleanse their hands after like blood sacrifices and shit.
Yeah, and it probably would have been carved into like a dip in the altar.
Right.
A low stone tables for dressing the victims.
Right.
And then a hall for the sacrificial feasts.
A hall.
A hall.
Is that like a cart?
What?
What do you mean a hall?
Like a hallway? Like
Oh, a hall.
what? Yeah.
Okay, so
what did
sorry.
you think I was saying?
I don't know. It was struggling with what you meant by I just wasn't expecting to hear a hall.
Like think of a banquet hall, not like a hallway.
Yeah, no, I got it now. I got it now.
Okay.
Like
Worship.
I was thinking haul this away.
Oh.
Yeah.
That would be a verb, not a noun.
Right, but some people say I gotta go grab my haul. You know, like it's a thing people say.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, like, you know.
I'm not from Ohio.
Right, yeah. I just wanted to clarify, that's all. A hall, a banquet hall, basically.
Yes, a banquet hall
Got
kind
it.
of thing.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, for the sacrificial feast. So worship often included making sacrifices, burning incense, and holding feasts or festivals. So a lot of this isn't new.
Right.
Just interesting.
I mean, it's kind of the same stuff they do in Christianity, just, you know, a different God.
Particularly,
and different rules.
Particularly Catholicism.
Catholicism?
That's what I said.
Catholicism?
Yeah, Catholicism. Do you ever like sometimes like say something and it should be a word, but then it isn't, but then there already is a word?
Right.
Like, we had somebody staying with us for a while that always said the word legitly.
Yes.
And I'm like, no, that word already exists and it's legitimately.
Right.
You can cut it short to legit, but you can't add an ly to a nickname word.
But
like,
is
that's
legit
dumb.
actually a word? Legit's not actually
No,
a word,
legit is short for legitimately. Or
right, but is it
legitimate.
actually a word?
Of course it's not.
So it's only you're basing your usage of words on MC Hammer then?
No! Oh my god! I'm saying you can shorten a word, that's fine. But you can't then take the shortened version and try to make it conglomerate with a longer version of the original word.
Okay.
That's dumb.
Sure. Whatever. I'll, you know, you yeah.
What?
I bow to your superiority in this arena, I guess.
Okay. Well, this took a strange turn. Anyway, so there were some examples that they gave that I thought was interesting because remember how Solomon had like 1,000 wives?
Yes, I do.
And so he would appease his various wives, probably mostly of political persuasion,
right.
by worshiping at their various altars, right?
Yeah.
So here's, for example, one that he would have done.
Okay.
Ashtaroth was the Canaanite goddess of sensual love and fertility. Worshippers at her altar would have had sexual relations out in the open with temple prostitutes. So he probably did that too.
Right.
Because that's what it would have called for.
So on top of his 1,000 wives, he also had sex with temple prostitutes.
Probably hundreds and thousands of them.
I see.
Yeah.
I see.
Yeah. So Milcom, the god of the Ammonites, was worshipped through child sacrifice, and they would throw children onto a fire. So he probably threw one of his kids onto a fire to appease them.
I mean, he probably had plenty to spare.
I mean, yeah, right? Like, I'm not arguing that he didn't have probably like thousands and thousands of kids.
I think I'd be hard pressed to remember all their names at that point. You know?
Yeah, you can't even remember all your cousins sometimes.
Right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Thousands of kids. Can you imagine? I can't even imagine.
No, that's ridiculous. Okay, so high places were also set up in a spot that had been artificially elevated. So sometimes it was just like a hill or a mountain, like think Mount Sinai.
Sure.
That's a high place.
Right.
But a lot of times they would create this artificially just to make it high.
Got it.
And the Israelites at various points practiced Molech worship and built high places for Baal. So, I mean, the Israelites were no stranger to this.
Right.
You know?
Obviously. I mean, they talk about it a lot in the Bible, how they worship other gods. And specifically Baal is in there quite a bit.
Right.
Like as one of those gods
Well,
that they're like, I'm going to go worship him now.
But let's not
back
forget
here-
that Baal was like a mixture of various Baals. Kind of
Right.
like, lowercase g God versus capital G God.
Sure. No, I get it. But I mean, he's definitely prominent in the Bible at some level. So.
Yes. So, just to reiterate, not all high places were dedicated to idol worship. So, when you say destroying high places, you got to be really careful because there's several examples that are listed here where it was not for idol worship.
Okay.
Like in Genesis chapter 12, Abram built altars to the Lord at Shechem and Hebron.
Right.
And in Genesis chapter 22, Abraham built an altar in the region of Moriah and was willing to sacrifice his son there. And this site is traditionally believed to be the same high place where the Temple of Jerusalem was eventually built.
To me, what this sounds like is that the high places were things that happened, I feel like they progressed to a different type of worship with Yahweh.
Mm-hmm.
And it used to be more pagan than it was, by the time it got to the king section.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, Abraham and Moses were probably much more pagan in their worship than it was by the time we got to...
Particularly given that he's about to sacrifice his kid here.
Right.
On an altar.
Right.
That he built.
Yeah.
Right. So, then again in Genesis chapter 28, Jacob set up a stone pillar to the Lord at Bethel. Then in Exodus chapter 19, Moses met God, as I said earlier, on Mount Sinai.
Right.
That's a very high place.
Yep.
In Joshua chapter 4, Joshua set up stone pillars after crossing the Jordan.
Right.
I mean, those were created as a high place.
Right.
In 1 Samuel chapter 7, the high places were visited regularly by the prophet Samuel. And high places as sites of Canaanite idol worship from Judges chapter 3 extended into the period of Elijah in 1 Kings. And God named only one high place where sacrifice was authorized, the temple in Jerusalem in 2 Chronicles chapter 3.
Oh, so the temple in Jerusalem is on a high place.
Mm-hmm. It not only it is a high place. Yeah.
But they want it to be the high place.
Mm-hmm.
Like
the highest of highs. The holiest of holies.
Right.
Yeah. God commanded that all other high places be destroyed.
Got it.
So
this was like a transitioning of high places, essentially.
Mm-hmm.
Like, no other high places shall exist.
Mm-hmm.
Only the one in Jerusalem is the only legitimate one. And we're going to legitly,
Oh my God. Stop. Stop you.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it just goes to show that religion was once again influenced by what was happening in the time and place around them. As those things changed, so too did the religion and practices itself.
Sure. Yeah. It makes sense.
Yeah. So that was high places.
Yeah.
And I feel better having looked those up. I mean, we kind of knew, but now we have a better understanding.
Right. Yeah.
So now let's talk about Sennacherib.
Okay.
And to talk about him, we have to start with his father, Sargon II.
Sargon II.
Okay. Are you familiar with the name Sargon?
No.
He's a big deal in the prehistoric world.
Okay.
He's a big name.
All right.
Okay. He was king of the Neo-Assyrian Empire from 772 BC to his death in battle in 705.
Wow, he lived quite a long time.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, he was a very cool guy. I'm like very enthralled with him.
Got it. Yeah.
Sargon aspired to conquer the known world, initiate a golden age and a new world order, and be remembered and revered by future generations. And he did that because, he did that by basing his faith and ideas off of the story of Gilgamesh and previous Sargons who wanted to conquer the world.
Got it.
Okay. So he's like got all these old stories and he wants to bring this new glorious time period.
Didn't we talk about some tie-in with Gilgamesh in the Bible or something?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. This is further.
Right. Yeah, no, I was just trying to remember. I thought we had talked about that at some point.
We did. The Genesis story.
Right.
In particular.
Yeah.
Over the course of his 17-year reign, Sargon substantially expanded Assyrian territory and enacted important political and military reforms.
Okay.
He was an accomplished warrior king and military strategist, and he personally led his troops into battle.
Got it.
By the end of his reign, all of his major enemies and rivals had been either defeated or pacified. So, I mean, this guy was pretty good, right?
Yeah.
He considered himself to have been divinely mandated to maintain and ensure justice.
Okay.
Which I love that sentence, because it's like, why does somebody else who's divinely mandated, why does their mandate somehow outshine or become more legitimate than somebody else's?
Bigger armies.
Right, exactly. Exactly. But it's just, his son is viewed as, the bad guy who took down Hezekiah, I think, was the one that he was at war with.
Okay.
And he wasn't just the bad guy because the Bible said so.
Right.
He was actually his own person over there with his own country, doing his own things and his own religious mandates.
I mean, we're reading this. The Bible is one perspective of pseudo history.
No, definitely.
And it does overlap with some actual history, but like,
it's just good to point out. Like, it's good to remember every once in a while. Just because the Bible said somebody was a bad guy doesn't mean they were a bad guy.
Right. No, this is this one side telling the story. So,
And here's an example of that.
Right.
So, Sargon worked to assimilate and integrate conquered foreign peoples into the empire and extended the same rights and obligations to them as to native Assyrians. So,
I mean, that's kind of cool.
That was very forward.
Yeah.
He's pretty progressive.
For the time, yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
He forgave defeated enemies on several occasions and maintained good relations with foreign kings and with the ruling class of the lands he conquered. He also increased the influence and status of both women and scribes at the royal court.
Wow.
Yeah, he was super progressive for his times.
Yeah.
I mean, and it just shows he actually was a good guy.
Right.
You know?
Yeah.
He was killed in battle in 705 BCE, and the Assyrian army was unable to retrieve his body, thereby preventing a traditional burial. Okay. According to ancient Mesopotamian religion, he was cursed to remain a restless ghost for eternity.
Oh.
Yeah.
So there's still a ghost of this dude somewhere, probably.
Probably wandering the earth because he wasn't allowed to be buried where he's supposed to be buried.
Yeah.
His fate was a major psychological blow for the Assyrians and damaged his legacy. Because, he'd done all these great things and then suddenly...
But he didn't have a proper burial.
Yeah, yeah.
And he got defeated first and then also was not able to have a proper burial.
Right. So, yeah, those two things together really hit the people hard.
Right.
And Sargon's son, Sennacherib, was deeply disturbed by his father's death and believed that he must have committed some grave sin. So as a result, Sennacherib distanced himself from Sargon.
Okay.
And it wasn't until this century that we're in, like the 1900s, or I guess that's not this century because we're in the 2000s. Sorry, in my mind, it was 1980 for a minute.
You should have seen me look at wife. I was like,
yeah.
what?
He's like, what the fuck are you talking about? So, okay, it wasn't until recent times, like within the last 100 years, that it was discovered that he existed and all of his glory had been like lost to history.
Okay.
And archaeologists have uncovered all of these documents and all kinds of stuff that just show how awesome he is.
Right.
And he existed and he did these great things.
Right.
So due to his conquests and reforms, Sargon is today considered one of the most important Assyrian kings.
Huh.
Isn't that interesting?
Yeah.
So, so now that's Sargon. He died, whatever.
Right.
Okay?
Yep.
His son Sennacherib decided to keep his birth name instead of taking on a regnal name. Like his father took on the name Sargon, likely from previous Sargons, right?
Yeah.
But Sennacherib, he was very confident, so he kept his own name when he became king. Okay?
Yep.
He assumed several new epithets that were never used by Assyrian kings before, such as guardian of the right and lover of justice. And that kind of, it does two separate things. One is he's still his father's son.
Right.
But also it suggests a desire to leave a personal mark on a new era beginning with his reign. So he still has some of his father's ideas, of doing good, but
he wants to set himself apart.
He did not portray himself as a conqueror or express much desire to conquer the world, unlike his father.
Okay.
So instead, his inscriptions are often portrayed the most important parts of his reign, which were large-scale building projects. So most of his campaigns were not aimed at conquest, like I said, but at suppressing revolts against his rule, restoring lost territories, and securing treasure to refinance his building projects.
Okay.
Because shortly after he inherited the throne in 705, Babylon was retaken, and all of these different places outside were like, oh, Sargon II is dead. Let's go in here and take this back.
Right.
And they thought the land would be weak. So that's
So
why
he had to reestablish his dominance, basically.
Yes, exactly. He inherited peace, and the fact that there was instant war after his father's death was not his fault.
Right.
And though Sennacherib reclaimed the south in 700 BC, the one guy from Babylon continued to trouble him. So that's part of why he attacked the Israelites in the story that we're familiar with from the Bible.
Okay.
Because he was like trying to get away from this guy.
Got it.
Okay, so this guy was like so bad, and I can't say his name. It's Marduk something blah blah blah. So I'm just gonna call him Marduk, okay?
Okay.
So Marduk captured and executed Sennacherib's oldest son, whom he had proclaimed as his new vassal king in Babylon.
Got it.
So his oldest son, he conquered Babylon and was going to put his son there. And then Marduk, one of the outside guys that was like, I'm going to get you now that your daddy's dead.
Yeah.
He killed Sennacherib's prince son.
Okay.
So though the Bible narrative holds that divine intervention by an angel ended Sennacherib's attack on Jerusalem by destroying the Assyrian army, an outright Assyrian defeat is very unlikely, as Hezekiah submitted to Sennacherib at the end of the campaign.
Right.
And contemporary records, even those written by Assyria's enemies, do not mention the Assyrians being defeated at Jerusalem.
Interesting.
Right? Like, oh,
so
go
they
figure.
just made up like a huge win. They're like, we need a win, so let's just put one there.
The chronicler, to be specific.
Right.
Yes, the chronicler, again,
I
a liar.
think that same win was in Kings too. So I mean, I remember the bit where they did that.
Oh, that's true.
So it was in both books.
That's true.
But he may have been researching in the Kings book. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and then embellished on his own.
Yeah.
So, boo.
And it was such a ridiculous claim.
Yeah.
Like God just killed them all.
Yeah, out of the blue.
Okay.
No, that didn't happen, you guys.
Right.
So after the death of his oldest son, Sennacherib originally designated his second oldest son, I'm just going to call him Mousy because I can't say his name. So Artamousy as his heir. But he later replaced him with a younger son, Esarhaddon, in 684 BC for unknown reasons.
Apparently his other son that he was going to put in was just not cutting it.
Well, yeah, listen to this. It goes on.
Oh, okay.
So I don't know if you recall, but the story that we were fed from the Bible is that what's his name? Sennacherib. Sorry, I forgot his name. Sennacherib was defeated, right? And then he ran home and his sons killed him. The end. Right. So, but then here's what really happened to him. Okay.
All right.
So, his oldest son was killed by Babylon, that guy. And then his next oldest son, he was like, I'm going to not make you my heir after all. Okay. And Sennacherib ignored Artamousy's repeated appeals to be reinstated. He's like, but dad.
Right.
And Sennacherib's like, nah, something ain't right with you.
Right.
So in 681 BC, Artamousy and his other brother Nabu whatever murdered Sennacherib.
Wow.
Hoping to seize power for themselves. Obviously.
Right.
They want to be king real bad, right? Yeah. Babylonia and that whole area welcomed Sennacherib's death as divine punishment, while the Assyrian heartland Heartland probably reacted with resentment and horror.
Gotcha.
Because, here's the beloved son of our beloved Sargon.
Right. Right.
This is bullshit.
Yeah.
Is what the people were thinking, like, oh God, we're fucked.
So they liked him.
Mm-hmm.
Probably.
Yeah.
At least for legacy reasons, if nothing else.
Yeah. I mean, Sargon II was a really good leader and believed in justice.
Right.
And then his son, Sennacherib, his own epithet was justice and right.
Right.
So, yes, these were guys who were for the people,
Yeah, yeah.
And so when he was killed,
That's
as Babylon is getting on him,
Yeah.
Yeah. So the people would have been very scared, very upset, very angry, very afraid.
Right.
So, because the people were in an uproar, the murderer's son, Artamausi, his coronation was postponed, and then the youngest one, Esarhaddon, the one who was originally, supposed to be the heir,
right?
He raised an army and seized Nineveh and installed himself as intended by Sennacherib.
Oh wow!
Sennacherib.
Okay, got it. Yeah.
So he put himself. So I mean, there's a whole story there. And it's like, I'm sorry, you guys said that he just went home and was killed by his sons, the end.
Right.
Like, none of you, all throughout fucking Kings 1 and 2, did the same goddamn thing.
Well, they don't care about the Assyrian kings. They don't care, I mean.
No, I know.
They are important in a historical context, but it's not important as far as the Bible stories are concerned.
I know, it just makes me mad that they presented this story as like, can you even believe? And he got punished for that. Ugh.
Well, you got to figure, like, there's going to be, like, the stories are going to be much more detailed in Assyria than they would be in Israel, right? Israel is just hearing the version of the story that they want to hear and nothing else. So, I mean, they're just going to hear the best version for Israel.
And that's what gets recorded, of course.
Right, right.
It's just annoying. I just hate it.
Yeah, definitely.
So, that is our Q&A for today on High Places and Sennacherib.
Awesome. And I think we're going to be coming back tomorrow with a Patreon episode, correct?
We are.
And then I'll be getting the weekly replay together. Mm-hmm. And then we'll be back on Monday with...
2 Chronicles Chapter...
35.
35!
Yes. Next week's going to be a little weird because we're doing 35 and 36... I think that's it, right? Mm-hmm. 36 is the last one.
35 and 36.
And then we'll be doing a few, like,
bonusy
episodes next week and stuff. So bear with us, and we'll get through next week and finish this book out. And then we'll be on into a new book, which is going to be... Do you know which one it is?
Give me a second.
Okay, I'm giving you a second. I'll just fill space here and talk about nothing for just a few seconds while you look it up so that people can enjoy my voice while you're doing Google searches.
It's Ezra.
Ezra, there it is.
Yeah.
We'll be reading Ezra next after we get done with this next week here and the bonus episodes that we're going to be doing.
I forgot it was Ezra.
I thought that was some really great filling space there.
That was just really great filling space.
I was pretty happy with myself.
You should be.
At that moment.
You're the best filler I ever had.
All right, guys. I think that's all we got for today. And we will see you, if you're a patron, we'll see you tomorrow. Or if you're a weekly episode with the listener, we'll see you tomorrow. Otherwise, we'll see you on Monday.
Yep.
All right. Bye.
Bye.
Hey, wife. I guess that's the end?
But husband, that's just sad.
It doesn't have to be. We are on lots of social media platforms like Twitter. Our handle there is sacrilegious_D.
For D's nuts.
Oh my God. Stop doing that. Anyway, we're also on Facebook, Instagram, and Pinterest. There's a link to all of our social media sites at our website.
Ooh, we have a website?
Yeah, it's sacrilegiousdiscourse.com, where you can also find a link to our merch shop.
We have a merch shop?
Yep, we have podcast-themed clothing, mugs, notebooks, and more, as well as an atheist and science-themed products.
Wow, our fans should really go check that out right now.
Definitely. They can get in touch with us by sending an email to sacrilegiousdiscourse@gmail.com. But before they do that, we could really use some help.
Oh yeah? With what?
Well, it's not free running the podcast, and we need some financial support in order to get better equipment, which will free up time so we can concentrate on our podcast and our fans.
Okay, so what should they do?
Head over to patreon.com/sacrilegious discourse and sign up as a contributor on our podcast. Supporters there receive additional bi-weekly episodes that we record just for our Patreon members for as little as $2 a month.
Also, we'd really appreciate it if you would like and subscribe on whatever platform you're using.
And Apple Podcast reviews help us out tremendously.
Like and subscribe, leave an Apple review, join us on Twitter, support us on Patreon. That's a lot of instructions. Don't forget to say thanks.
Thanks.
Okay, bye.
Acast powers the world's best podcasts. Here's a show that we recommend.
Hey, I'm Tom Merritt.
And I'm Sarah Lane, and we love talking about tech.
Now, you might wonder why. Isn't tech news all antitrust cases and stealing data these days?
No, I mean, we do help you understand all of that without the hype you might get from a lot of other sources, but there's so much more. Like Taiwan rolling out a digital currency.
Autonomous shipping being threatened by cyber pirates.
And NFTs being for more than just fleecing people out of their money, like concert tickets or booking vacations. Did you know about these? Well, you would know them well if you listen to Daily Tech News Show.
You'll be the most well-informed person on tech in the room.
So wherever you listen to your podcasts, follow Daily Tech News Show.
Acast helps creators launch, grow, and monetize their podcasts everywhere. Acast.com.